All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly Tuesday Connect. I'm Dora. I'm the host or the organizer of this group. So every week I come on here to talk about a particular topic that may be interesting to you. It certainly is what I'm thinking about, usually what I'm thinking about during the week. So hopefully this content is useful for you. So today we are talking about why parenting um, feels so hard sometimes. Um, so I work with a lot of mothers, so this is something that comes up a lot, right? As mothers, we tend to worry about our kids, right? As any parent would. Um, our kids are constantly on our minds, and they're probably our number one concern when it comes to, for many of us, and our lives tend to revolve around them, right? There are many things that we might worry about when it comes to parenting. We might feel like our kids, we're constantly worried about things such as, what are we feeding our kids, whether they're eating right, whether we're being good role models for them, how are our kids behaving, whether it be around us or at school or with their peers or with others? Is it normal, right? How are they doing at school academically? Are they making friends? Who are their friends? Are they healthy? And so on and so on. So we can get really, I mean, there are so many things that are on our minds when it comes to our kids. So, one thing that I find curious is that during this modern era, we seem to have lost trust with ourselves in regarding our parenting skills, along with quite a number of other areas in our lives. But today we're focusing on parenting. Um, and the curious thing is that, this is a time when information is so readily available. There has not been a time when information has been so readily available and all at our fingertips, right? But yet, this is also a time when we have become more confused about what to do, right? We don't we don't trust ourselves as parents in many areas of parenting nowadays, and there's just so much confusion, and mothers are um, constantly worried whether they're doing the right thing by their children. I'm a member of a number of different mothers group in Facebook, and I see, every day the comments and posts that are coming through are of moms who are stressed out about whether they're feeding their kids right, whether this is okay or that. And, there's just so much confusion and anxiety, and ultimately, mothers don't feel confident in making the right decisions for their kids, and they're outsourcing that to other people in a sense. And so, how did we get here? I feel that there are a couple of things that may be contributing. But before I go on, again, this Facebook Live doesn't seem to be showing up for me in terms of comments and things like that. So hopefully um, I'm not missing anyone. But if you do have any comments, or if you are commenting, feel free to just go ahead, and if I don't see any comments pop up by the end of this video, I will go ahead and comment and reply to you afterwards. Sorry about this. I can't seem to get it on my phone right now either, and I don't want to waste time. So let's just move on or move ahead. What are some of the things that I think may be contributing? Um, so one thing is that our family structure has changed quite a bit over the last decades or centuries. Children used to be raised in a multi generational environment. It literally took a village, right? Um, and we lived in smaller communities where kids kind of knew everybody and everybody kind of knew the kids. And whether we're talking about like a village or just maybe a smaller community, civilized community, you have your parents, you have your grandparents, you have other adults that are in your lives that that they know you, they see you grow up, your neighbors, maybe your local grocer or butcher or whatever. Like it's a small community where everybody kind of knows everybody, and that kids can feel safe in knowing that there are multiple adults that they can depend on for various things. Adults who are responsible and loving, hopefully, right? Now, a family unit consists of, you know, the parents and the kids essentially. The grandparents might come into the picture for some families, which is great, but they're also not in a living situation where everybody is there. Like people might visit, they might come and go, but essentially it's it's the parents, or maybe even one parent and their children, or a child or children. And so the challenge as a mother is that we have strong instincts to care for our children. We want to protect them, to nurture them, be supportive, and even even if you have a partner who is supportive, you are, or we are, essentially still mostly the primary carers for our children. Many of us don't get the support that we used to have in a traditional multi-generation setting, right? We kind of, you know, maybe with the change in society, expectations, and so forth, we have sort of taken upon ourselves to do it all. To take care of the households, to care for the kids, make sure that they're fed and clothed and all the practical aspects of things, but then also be there for their psychological and emotional needs. And all the while, if you have little ones, you're doing it on very little sleep. And if you have teenagers, you're maybe likely doing this on very little sleep too, if you're wondering, what's happening in their world, where they're at, and all of that. And so on top of all of that, we as women now may be working part-time or even full-time jobs on top of all of the things that we're doing. So, in terms of um, caring for the caring for our children, our family, our household, which was traditionally what women were did in the past, they in that time they likely had a lot more help. But now what we're doing, we're shifting towards where we are doing it all or mostly by ourselves without much external help. But on top of that, we have extra responsibility and expectations that we have on ourselves. So no wonder why this makes it difficult for us to feel relaxed enough to spend quality time with our kids. And I say this because, we really only have so much time in a day. And when we're busy attending to the house, to the day to day things, taking care of the kids, being in their lives, cooking for them, clothing them, playing with them, and so forth, a lot of the times we're not spending, or we don't feel um, energetic enough to truly be present with our children, even if we're in their lives, day in and day out, almost 24/7 being with them. That when we're under so much stress, when we have so much things that needs to get done and things that we worry about, it is hard to find that time and energy to really be present with our kids. you know really taking time to play with them without feeling drained, without trying to take care of them, like, because even when we're with our kids, we're always trying to take care of all the details around them. um and so, yeah, so really to be present and have that patience to truly connect with them as human beings rather than children that we're in charge of. That is really, it's tough. It's tough to find that balance. And also, many of us struggle to find time for our own self-care. We get tired and frustrated because we need time to nourish ourselves, to restore ourselves. But we don't put ourselves as priority a lot of the times. Or we feel guilty taking time for ourselves when we should be. When there is such a long list of things to do at home, you don't feel like you're justified to take that time for yourself, and you feel like being selfless is how you need to be, and just putting all your time and energy on your kids or people around you. And we start to put ourselves second, third, fourth, and then maybe close to the end of the list. And so when the thing is, though, when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're going to feel drained. We're going to burn out eventually. It's not sustainable, right? We can't give when our cup is empty. And so, and I think many mothers understand this before, or with all our conditioning and thoughts and beliefs that have been ingrained into us, we find it hard to let go of that and to be real, to really to put ourselves or prioritize our needs and our self-care. But when we don't do that, we're not going to be as effective as human beings, let alone as a parent, right? We're going to struggle to complete the to-do list because we're not as effective in our day-to-day jobs or tasks. And then, it feeds back to us feeling more frustrated with ourselves, more tired, and it can, it gets into a vicious cycle. And on top of that, right, when we are not taking care of ourselves, we will find it hard to take care of others. And this applies to all areas. So, we can imagine if we're not physically well, it makes it really hard for us to do the physical tasks in our day. It's going to be hard for us to take care of the day-to-day activities, even just dressing our kids or cooking or playing with our kids. Now, if we're not emotionally well, in the same way, we will not be able to hold space and create safety for our children to express and address their emotional needs. And so while we're so busy attending to all the tasks that we feel like we need to have done, and we can also talk about that's a different topic, or different conversation, in that we have expectations, either external expectations, or whether expectations we put onto ourselves, or whether it's just like an unsaid expectation from society or from from your family that you need to be this way or do these things in order to be a good mother or be a good person. So a lot of the things that we put on our lists may not, perhaps they don't even need to be on our list, but they're there. Okay, so that's another conversation, another place where we may want to explore later on. But when we are focused on these, all of the things that need to get done, and we're stressed out about all of these things, and we have the best intention to be there for our kids, and we're making sure that they're all the necessary things that are for their survival and basic needs are taken care of. But by then we're so tired and drained that we're not able to be there and hold space for their psychological and emotional needs. So what do we do? So I've been reading a really interesting book called Hold On to Your Kids. It's written by psychologist Gordon Newfield and physician Gabor Mate. And it's really interesting to me because they talk about the need for attachment. And they talk about attachment between a child and a parent. This is normally where the attachment binds, if you like, is usually parent to child. But it doesn't have to be this way. You know, the child can attach to other adults or even other kids. And the reason why that there's this strong urge for the child to attach to somebody is because that's part of their survival. They're young, and they need to depend on someone for their survival until they become old enough and develop enough to be a separate adult and take care of themselves. And so this happens across, you know, the animal kingdom, right? You have chickens and chicks and goslings and things that have a strong impression on when they're born. They form an impression on their mother, but in absence of their mother, they can form attachment or impressions onto other things. You know, it could be a cat if there's a cat nearby, or other animals, or even objects like toy cars and things like that. And so there's a strong urge for the young to attach to an adult for survival. And so in kids, at least throughout the last few generations, there's been a shift towards um, kids attaching to their peers. So they're becoming peer oriented. And in fact, if you know, if you're in my generation, the book states that you know we're probably we grew up with peer orientation as opposed to having that strong attachment to parent. And this is becoming more and more of the norm. And the authors argue that that actually is not natural, even though this is becoming the norm, and we think that this is okay because you know that's how we probably experience our childhood. That there's a need for a strong attachment between and it doesn't have to necessarily be a parent, but at least a loving, responsible adult with the child. The child needs a strong attachment or connection or relationship with a responsible, loving adult in order for them to develop properly in terms of in terms of their psychological growth and development. And there, you know, even though that attaching to peers can satisfy that the attachment aspect or the void that they may feel due to it, missing attachment to an adult, but peer-to-peer attachment is not going to help them to grow or develop or to mature psychologically, because both peers are immature, and it's you know there are things that they cannot provide for each other to help each other on the psychological growth. And if you're interested in this book, I'm going to post it up so you can read more about it. They go much more in depth as to the science and the psychology behind peer oriented children. But the point I want to make here is that we are seeing a shift towards children being more aggressive, more violent, or behaviors that are harder to control, or behaviors that were not observed maybe a few generations ago. And part of that, at least what the authors are arguing, is that the attachment between child and a loving adult is becoming less and less. Um, it's not being nurtured the same way as it had been generations ago. And that as peer oriented children ourselves, as we were growing up, now that we are parents, we kind of think it's normal for kids to be with their or attaching to other peers. And so we may even encourage kids to be with their peers, to kind of I guess think it's normal to feel that kind of distance, if you like, to say, oh, it's more important that the kids make friends than for us to nurture this relationship, or that we're so tired that we're like, oh, thank goodness they're going to their friend's house, or they're going to school, or you know other activities where you can finally have some time for yourself. And so again, this is a much bigger conversation. I'm not trying to make any claims with, just the time that we have here. Certainly love to open it up to see what your perspectives are, and we can talk more about this. But one of the things that I found interesting is that it's not so much the behaviors of the children that we should be focusing all our attention on when we see an issue, like including the increase in bullying, and we have a lot of there's an increase in depression and anxiety in kids, and even suicide. And so all of these things, it is something that we shouldn't ignore. We should look into, okay, what is causing this increase in these mental conditions or behaviors in our kids nowadays. And so the authors of this book argues that, they have lost that crucial attachment to their parents and shifted that attachment to peers, which are not helping with their psychological growth, but also it's exacerbating some of the behaviors or the negative behaviors that we see nowadays. And so what to do then? It's really about cultivating a relationship with your child again. And this could, of course, this is very individual. Like each person is going to, each child is different, each parent is different, and the way we do this may be very different. But to start to be aware um, of what you're doing when your child is present. Do you feel that you're taking this time or taking time regularly to nurture the relationship that you have with your child? And even if we're thinking about adults or even about yourself, what it is that you need from another person, whether it be your friend, your partner, a family member. What are some of the things that make you feel that you are that you matter, that you're important to them? What are some of the things that you would like to feel so that you feel safe in that relationship? Because our kids are just little human beings. They need the same kinds of they have the same kinds of emotional needs as most of us, and maybe even more so, because they don't have the cognitive ability to start to understand some of the emotions that they're feeling, and it's hard for them to have an objective perspective on certain things. And when a child feels like something doesn't feel right, or if they feel unsafe, instead of being able to see the situation as is and say, oh, you know, whoever it may be saying these things and I'm uncomfortable with that, or instead of, or they lack the capacity to understand the situation. They're just going to take that emotion that they're feeling, and then they'll just feel like, oh, I am not good enough, or it's my fault that my parents are mad, or because that's what that's where they're at psychologically. They appropriate everything onto themselves, and so they're going to feel like, oh, it's me, the problem is with me, or I am the problem, or I caused the problem. And so as parents, if we don't need to have a psychology degree to parent our children. And what is happening, my belief is that because we become so disconnected with ourselves, it's hard to be able to connect to other people in a deep way, because we're not able to do it for ourselves. And whatever you cannot do for yourself, you cannot do for other people. So, this is why it's all the more important that we do take this time to do the inner work, and to take that time for self-care, to take that time to connect with ourselves, so that we can take care of other people, that we can be the rock for other people and hold space for other people, and to connect and have intimacy with other people, whether it be with your partner or with your kids. But when you're not able to um, go to that vulnerable place within yourself, it's hard for you to be open and to sit with the vulnerability of another person. And for our kids, it is important for them to have that space where they can express themselves, where they feel safe to have these, to explore their emotions, to be vulnerable. And this is key, that they are able to be vulnerable with you. And so, no matter how much we love our children, we can't do something and provide them something or be something for them that we have not resolved or be able to do for ourselves. Because the baggage, the trauma that we carry with us are usually embedded deep in our bodies, in our subconscious or unconscious, that they are actually automatic reactions. They're not under our conscious control. So when something comes up, when a trigger comes in, we automatically generate these reactions, and we could end up hurting people that we love, or we may not be able to be fully present. We may find it hard to be patient or compassionate when we find ourselves in circumstances that trigger us to respond, or sorry, to react, because it's not even a response. You don't even have time to think about it. We react in a way that bypasses our conscious minds. And so unless we can go in and do that work and try to start to go deeper into our consciousness and figure out what's going on, what are some things that I'm holding on to that are not helpful to me, that are causing me to react defensively or aggressively, or may trigger agitation or impatience and shame. Like, what is the deeper issue here? Because the triggers are usually just that. They're triggering something, bringing up a message to let you know that there's something that you need to work on and you need to resolve. When we're not aware of that, things, even just day-to-day interaction with our kids, can be stressful for both ourselves and the kids, because we're reacting instead of responding. Sometimes it's not about the child. And I know this, there are many times when I have had been frustrated with my child, when, and afterwards I realized it wasn't actually him that was the source of my frustration. There was something that he did that brought up old wounds that had not been resolved, and that was why I had a reaction, and that's why frustration came out. That's why other reactions or emotions came out. And so if we're not able to do this work for ourselves, it's really, really hard for us to be present for our kids and see them as they are, and to be curious about their development as human beings, and rather than unconsciously placing our expectations onto them about how they should be living. Where, of course, there's a fine line as parents. When they're growing, they do need some guidance. But we also need to be clear about how much of what I'm doing is actually helping my child grow and explore and become the person that he or she truly is, or how much of it is based on my conditioning, my fears and insecurities, that I'm putting that onto my children in a way to try to keep them safe and protect them from things that are actually my traumas but not theirs. And so, if we don't do this work, we won't know, where that line is. And so yeah, I'm going to wrap it up because we're coming close to 30 minutes. But in the end, I think that we need to continue to find time to connect with ourselves. This is really, really important, and it's not selfish to do this. If anything else, if you can't do this for yourself, you can't do this for anyone else. So you are doing this so that you can be the best person you can be, and be the most loving and compassionate person you can be to those around you. And then when you're able to do that, you're going to be able to be there for your child or your children in a whole different way. You're going to be able to find that intuition that's been hidden underneath all of these different conditionings and layers of yourself. Because parenting is intuitive. It had always been intuitive. We've been parents for, as a human race, for millions of years. And why all of a sudden this is so confusing? Why all of a sudden that we don't know how to do this anymore? Because we've lost connection with ourselves. We lost this connection with our intuition. We don't trust ourselves anymore. When we can come back to ourselves, parenting becomes intuitive. We're now not coming from a place of fear and insecurity and trying to make things right. We're coming from listening and being there for our children heart to heart, and really seeing them for who they are and what they need, and how you can be there for them in that moment. So connection with yourself is going to lead to connection with your child. And when you have that connection, keep nurturing it. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to sound like a lot of work. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to leave my job and homeschool my kids? It's not about that. It's about whatever situation you're in, there's likely something that you can do to start cultivating a new relationship, a better relationship. And it, can be little steps. Take more time to just say to your child, hello, how is your day? But not just while you're doing something else and he's or she's doing something else. No, stop, look at them in the eye, talk to them, connect with them. And this could just be a couple of minutes. But if you do this every day, a couple of minutes, and get used to even just saying good morning and giving them a hug, or whatever it is that you can do to just connect, but really connect. Take that time, put your book down, whatever, look at them in the eye, connect. So it doesn't have to be a lot of work, but like with anything that I do in my practice, I encourage my clients to do, to practice little but often. Consistency, regularity, check in with yourself, check in with the other. And in the end, it could be just as simple as that. That would be a start. Let's just reconnect. Reconnect with self and reconnect with others. So then, let me see. I'll be ending soon. I'm just checking. I have some notes here. So this is a really big topic, and if there's anything that kind of jumped out to you and you want to learn more about, just comment below, let me know. I'm still not getting comments showing up for me at the moment, so I'm sorry if you are commenting. I'll make sure I'll get back to you. And also, I'll be launching my second and last round of my group coaching program for the year. I only run this program twice a year, so this is the last round for this year. It's a 12-week group coaching program where I help you to discover inner peace that resides within you, help you to uncover your true purpose in life, help you to reconnect with yourself in the deepest way, just like what we've been talking about, how to nurture and strengthen your relationships with yourself and other people, and lastly, to educate and empower you to make the right healthy lifestyle changes that stick for the long term. So if you're interested in joining me for this round, please let me know ASAP. I only have a few spots left because I want to keep these groups intimate so that we can maintain a good quality coaching for each person in this program. So I have a few spots left. And like I said, this is the last round for this year. We start in 2 weeks. So if you have any questions, please book in a discovery call with me. It's a free, no obligation call. But if you do it before next Tuesday, I'll give you $500 off the regular price of the program, should you decide to go ahead. So again, it's no obligation. But if the program feels like it's something that's right for you, you're going to get $500 off if you book the discovery call before next Tuesday. So I'll make sure I'll link in all of the information so you can read more about it. But otherwise, again, just jump on a call with me and we can just have a chat and I'll clear up everything for you. All right, so I will end it here. Wish you a wonderful rest of the week, and I'll be back with you next Tuesday. Take care, everyone. Bye now.